In last lesson, we studied about conditions using relational and logical operators. In this lesson, we will use those with if statement. So what is an if statement? If statement is used to check a condition, and if the condition is true, it will execute one or more statements. And if the condition is false, it will not execute those statements. In other words, you can say that one or more statements are linked with some condition. They will get executed if the condition is true. Let's first see the basic working of the if statement, and then we will explore a couple of useful examples. Suppose I am taking an integer from the user and I am asking him to enter an integer less than 100. Previously, we have been assuming that user will follow the instructions, but of course he can enter a different number. So let's apply an if statement to see if user has actually entered a number less than 100. For that, we write the if statement followed by the parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, we will write the condition. Although these parentheses are not mandatory, but usually it is better to have them. Inside the parenthesis, we will write the condition to check if entered number x is less than 100. After the parenthesis, we place a colon sign. So this is the syntax of an if statement. Now if I press enter, the cursor moves to the new line, which is line number 3, and I can write a statement over there. You can see that it is not starting from the beginning of line number 3, and there is some space before this print statement. This beginning space is known as indentation. We will talk about indentation in a while, but let's first run the code. I am entering 89, which is less than 100, and you can see the print statement output that you entered correct number. Now let's see what happens if we enter a number greater than 100. You see code has ended and we do not see the output of line number 3 print statement. This is because the condition of line number 2 is false for this case, and that's why line number 3 has not been executed. This is the flowchart of the if statement. We have some condition on this block. If the condition is true, the flow of program moves to the right side, executes this block, and then move forward. On the other hand, if the condition is false, the program will move ahead without considering the right branch. So this right branch is linked with the condition and will be executed only if the condition is true. If we have anything before this condition, for example, I am writing a simple print statement. Now this line number 2 has nothing to do with the condition on line number 3. So whether the number is less than 100 or greater than 100, line number 2 will be executed in every case. Now let's talk about this space, which is known as indentation. This specifies that this statement of line number 4 is linked with the if statement of line number 3. So if I press the enter after the end of this line, you can see again we have indentation on line number 5. So that means line number 5 is also linked with the if condition of line number 3. So these are the two lines with indentation, and we can call it as the block of if statement, which means that it is the block which will get executed when if statement is true. So you can see if I have entered a correct number like 90, both of line number 4 and 5 are executed. And if I enter a wrong number, both line number 4 and 5 are not executed. So this is the flowchart of this kind of scenario, where you can see that when condition is true, we can have as many things as we want to execute indicated on the right side. So these 3 blocks will get executed if the condition is true and will not get executed if the condition is false. If I press enter at the end of line number 5, you can see the cursor position of line number 6 is after one indentation. So if I write any statement over there, that will also be the part of if block. But suppose I want to write a statement, for example goodbye, and I don't want to link that with the if statement of line number 3. So what I can do is I will press a backspace, and now the cursor is at the start of line number 6, which means this statement is not the part of if block. So if I enter a wrong number, you can see line number 4 and 5 are not executed, but we can see the output of line number 6. So it's all about indentation, which will determine the block of if statement. In most of other programming languages, this indentation is not a mandatory part. But even in those languages, it is always suggested to use proper indentation because it improves the readability of the code. So if you just visualize this code, you can very clearly see that this is the block of if statement because of those indentation. So in Python, indentation is the part of syntax. This is the block diagram of this particular scenario where you can see the two blocks will get executed if the condition is true, but this block will get executed in every case. Now let's see if the condition on the number is that it should be between 0 and 100 instead of just less than 100. So I can update the condition using the AND logical operator, and if I want to include both 0 and 100, I can use less than equal to and greater than equal to. So now if entered number is -10, this would also be treated as wrong number and line number 4 and 5 are not executed. If we have to check less than and greater than relation on a single variable, we can use this format as well. Now let's see if I want to take another number from the user after the first number being checked in the if statement of line number 3. I can do this after the if statement block. Suppose this time we are asking for the number between 500 and 1000, so I can again apply an if statement. And now this statement on line number 11 is not the part of if statement of line number 3 or line number 8. These two if statements are independent of each other, which means that there is no link in between those. So maybe both can be true, or both can be false, or one can be false and the other can be true. This is the flowchart of this particular scenario, where you can see that after the first if statement, whether that was true or false, we are moving to the second if statement, and that can be again true or false. So if I enter the first number as 80, the if statement of line number 3 is true, and you can see the output of line number 4 and 5. Now the interpreter is on line number 7 and asking for the second input. So if I enter it as 800, the second if condition on line number 8 is also true. Now the first condition is false and the second condition is true. Of course, in the second if block, again we can have more than one statements. You can test this by yourself. Now let's consider the case of one input only, and we will discuss about if-else statement. We can have an else linked with the if statement. What it means is that if the condition is true, the if block will get executed, but if the condition is false, the else block will get executed. We write else followed by a colon sign. There is no condition of the else block. It is linked to the if statement. For example, here the if statement of line number 3, and the else block will get executed when the condition of line number 3 is false. Again, you can see the indentation over there, which specifies the block of else statement. You should understand that an else is always linked to an if statement. So we can have an if statement without an else statement, but we cannot have an else statement without any if statement. So I'm printing that you entered a wrong number in else block. So if I enter 90, which makes the condition on line number 3 true, you can see line number 4 and 5 are executed, but line number 7 is not executed. And if I enter a negative number, now instead of line number 4 and 5, line number 7 is executed. So you can see with if-else statement, one of the block will get executed, either if or the else, depending upon the condition. Now we will see some useful cases where we can use this if and if-else statements. The first is taking an integer from the user and printing whether it is an even number or an odd number. To check if a number is even, we know that it is divisible by 2, and we can check that by the remainder division, that x remainder division 2 is 0. If that is so, the number is an even number. And then I can have another if statement to see if the remainder is 1 instead of 0, then the number is an odd number. The two if statements on line number 2 and line number 4 are independent. The interpreter will check both of those, but we know the condition is written in a way that only one of the two will be true. But that is because of the condition, but interpreter will check both of those. So if I enter 23, on line number 2 the condition is false, so the line number 3 will not get executed. Then interpreter will move to the line number 4 and the condition will be true over there, and that will execute line number 5, and it should print that it is an odd number. Now if I enter 20, the first condition is true, that will execute line number 3, but interpreter will also check the condition on line number 4 which is false, and it will not execute line number 5. I hope that you can see over here that instead of using another if statement, it's better to use an else statement, because if the remainder is 0, the number is even, and if it is not 0, means the condition of line number 2 is false, the number is an odd number. So again, you can check the output by yourself. Now let's see next case. Here I will take two numbers from the user and I want to print the ratio of the two numbers. If I enter first number as 2 and second number as 0, we get an error because we cannot divide a number by 0. The error name is zero division error. Now let's see how we can handle this case using the if statement. This num1 divided by num2 actually caused the error when num2 is 0. The problem is because of num2. So I can write an if statement that if num2 is 0, then instead of printing the ratio of the two numbers, I can print an appropriate message that second number cannot be 0. And now this else means the condition of line number 4 is false, which means num2 is not 0, and now I can have the same previous statement, printing the ratio of the two numbers. Now I'm sure that the num1 divided by num2 will get executed only when num2 is not 0. So now when I entered second number as 0, you can see that instead of error, a message is displayed. And if the number is not 0, we're getting the correct ratio. I have seen students doing a blunder here that they find the ratio and assign that to a variable like r equal to num1 divided by num2. The problem is not with this assignment. The problem is that now line number 3 is not linked to the if statement, which means that it will get executed in every case, even if the number 2 is 0. And in that case, we will get the error. So there is no use of applying the if statement if we have written this line number 3 outside the if statement. So if you want to assign that to a variable, you can do that, but you should do that inside the else block to ensure that division by 0 is not happening. Now let's see the next case. Here we will take a number from the user and we will display the square root of that number. If I enter a negative number like -5, it has generated the error because square root function of math module cannot find the square root of a negative number and it generates an error in that case. So what can be the solution? The solution can be to apply the square root function by first checking if the number is greater than 0 or not. And if that is negative, we can print a custom message. So I'm saying if x is positive or 0, then it should display the square root of that number x, and else, meaning that the condition is false, that is the x is negative, we can display some message. So now instead of error for -4, a message is displayed. We know that square root of negative number does exist and that is a complex number, so displaying this message is not a good approach. We should display the corresponding complex number, which will have real part as 0 and imaginary part as the square root of magnitude of that negative number. And I can do that by using complex, and then I will specify the real part as 0 and the imaginary part as square root of the negative of the x. We are in the else block where x is negative, so this negative of x will make it positive and then square root will be applied on that. Or maybe you can use the absolute function. Now you can see the correct output for -4. And it is correct for +4 as well. Now we will move to the next case and we will write the program to find the area of the triangle from 3 sides of the triangle. So I'm taking 3 inputs from the user as the 3 sides of the triangle. Now I am applying the area formula of the triangle. I hope you are familiar with the valid and invalid triangles from the given side. For a valid triangle, sum of any of the two sides should be greater than the third side. So if I enter 2, 3 and 4 as the sides of the triangle, it is a valid triangle because you add any two sides, the sum will be greater than the third and the program is giving us the correct output. But if I enter the sides as of an invalid triangle, for example here 2 plus 3 is 5, which is less than the third side, which is 6. So if I run the code, it has generated an error. So let's resolve this issue using the if statement. So I am applying an if statement that sum of a and b is greater than c and likewise b and c is greater than or equal to a and sum of c and a is greater than or equal to b. And I will make these area calculations the block of if statement by pressing the tab key, which will add the indentation, and these two statements are the block of if statement. This print statement should also be the part of if block, and else means if the condition is false, so I'm simply displaying an appropriate message. Should we have an equality on this condition, or it should be just greater than? Actually, it should be just greater than for the validity of the triangle. But if we have equality and if we enter the sides as something like 2, 3 and 5, so you know 2 plus 3 is 5, which means that a line segment of size 2 and a line segment of size 3 when connected results into a line segment of size 5, which is only possible when the first two line segments are connected on the straight line. So actually this is not a triangle, or maybe you can say a triangle with the area 0. If you analyze the formula of area calculation, you can find easily that when triangle is invalid, this expression inside this square root function results into a negative value. So what I can also do is that I can do some area calculations outside the if statement which does not involve the square root of a number. And I am assigning that square root expression to a variable x, and as I said that this expression would be a negative value if the triangle is invalid and will be positive or 0 otherwise. So instead of this lengthy condition, now I can say that if x is greater than or equal to 0, and inside this if block I will find the square root of x. Now let's see this task from the lab manual, in which you have to take two numbers from the user and you have to print if they are closed or not closed. If the two numbers are within the difference of 10 units, they will be treated as closed and not closed otherwise. For example, if numbers are 85 and 80, the program displays that they are closed. And if the numbers are 10 and 80, the program will display that they are not closed. Now let's write the code for this program. I am taking the two numbers from the user The condition can be that a minus b is less than or equal to 10. Then we should print that the numbers are closed. And otherwise, numbers are not closed. Let's enter 80 and 77 and the result is that they are closed. Now if we enter 77 and 80, still they are displayed as closed. Now if we enter 80 and 10, they are displayed as not closed. But see carefully now that if we enter 10 and 80, they are being displayed as closed, although the difference between them is 70. This is because we have done a little mistake in the condition on line number 4. We are applying the condition on a minus b being less than or equal to 10. So 10 minus 80 results into minus 70 and that is less than 10. So basically we should compare the magnitude of the difference of the two numbers, and for that we can use absolute function. And now the result is true for 10 and 80. Now in this task, you have to take in marks of 5 subjects from the user. It is written that you have to take those one by one, but I think it will be better to have multiple inputs here. So anyways, after taking 5 subjects marks from the user, assuming that all are out of 100, you have to first display the average of those marks, and then based on the average value of the 5 marks, you have to print an appropriate message. For example, if average marks are greater than or equal to 80, you will print that you are an outstanding student. If the marks are greater than or equal to 70, you will print that you are a good student. And likewise, we have different messages for different range of the average marks. So let's first take in 5 subjects marks from the user. Finding the average value is very simple. We will print the average marks And now we will apply conditions on the average marks, that if the average marks are greater than or equal to 90, we are printing that you are an outstanding student. And now in another if statement, if the average marks are greater than 80, we are printing another message that you are a good student. So let's enter the 5 marks. The average is 84.6 and you can see the corresponding message displayed on the output screen. Now let's enter some bigger values so that the average should be greater than 90. So now average is 93.6 and we have that message that you are an outstanding student, but we are getting the other message too displayed on the output screen. Why is that so? Because the if conditions on line number 5 and 7 are independent. So with average greater than 90, the if condition on line number 5 is true and the print statement on line number 6 is executed. But interpreter will also check the if condition of line number 7 then, and that average greater than or equal to 80 is true for 93.6 and therefore line number 8 will also get executed. So the problem is with this if condition. So we should update it as average is greater than or equal to 80 and it is less than 90. So that when average is like 93.6, the if condition of line number 5 is true, but the if condition of line number 7 will be false. Now let's again enter some bigger values. Average is 93 and this time we do not see the output for the line number 8 because the condition on line number 7 is false this time. So please complete the task for the remaining conditions as well. Now I will move to the next task which is shown over here, and it says that a company insures its employees in the following cases. The first is that if employee is married, he or she will get insurance. The second is if the employee is unmarried and he is male and his age is above 30 years, then he is eligible for the insurance. In third case, the employee is unmarried, she is female and her age is greater than 25, then she is eligible for the insurance. And in any other case, the employee is not eligible for the insurance. So we have to write a program that will ask for the marital status, gender and the age of the employee, and on the output it will print whether he or she is eligible for the insurance or not. So let's do it here. I will take the marital status in variable m and user will have to enter m if he or she is married and should enter u if unmarried. So this input should be of string data type. We will assume that user will enter the valid entry either as m or u and will not enter anything else. Then I am taking the gender in variable g. User should enter m for male and f for female. Again we will assume that user will enter a valid input. Then for age, I am using the variable a and the input will be of int data type. So we want to have an if statement and we must have a condition there which should return true for the 3 cases mentioned in the problem statement. And otherwise it will return false. So in else statement, we will write that you are not eligible. Now what should be the complete condition for the if statement of line number 4? These are the 3 cases for the eligibility of the insurance. So I will create a space here and we will write the condition for the if statement. First see carefully that for these 3 conditions, there is and or between those. You should easily understand that between these 3 conditions, we have or logic. If first case is true, or second case is true, or third case is true, the employee is eligible for the insurance. So I am writing 3 empty parentheses with or logical operator and we will fill each of these cases in these three parentheses. The first case is that employee is married. The marital status is in variable M, and if the employee is married, he or she has entered M for that. So we will write M equal M. In this M equal M, please see carefully that the M on the left side is the variable name, and the M on the right side is written inside single quotation marks, which means that is a string, and we are comparing that the value in variable M is M. If you are getting confused with these two M's, then we can change the variable name on line number 1, and instead of M, let's use S for status. So S is the variable name, and in this condition we are saying that S variable is having the value M or not. So this is the complete condition for the first case, that if employee is married, then the condition of eligibility is satisfied. At the moment we are assuming that user will enter the letter M or U in lowercase. So we shouldn't worry about the uppercase M. Now let's move to the second condition, and there are three things in that second condition: that employee is unmarried, he is male, and the age is above 30 years. So is there or and in between these three? Of course there will be and. That employee is unmarried and he is male and he is above 30 years. So we will write that over here, that status is unmarried and gender is male and age is greater than 30. So this completes the second case. Likewise, we can write the condition for the third case, that status is unmarried, gender is female, and age is greater than 25. Let's enter the marital status as married, and now whatever is the gender or age, the employee must be eligible for the insurance. This time status is unmarried, employee is male, and if the age would be less than 30, he shouldn't be eligible for the insurance. You should test some other cases by yourself. If you see this condition, it is quite lengthy and is not very much fit on the single line. There are ways we can write a single statement in multiline using the multiline operator, which is backslash. But in case of logical operators for the if statement, we can simply split that statement into multilines without using multiline operator, like done over here. This is not better readable, so another option can be that we can enter the indentation on these multilines and there will be no effect on the output. Or even better would be this format. Now if we also have to consider the cases of uppercase letters, we can use that as lower m or upper m. And same for the other characters. Use parentheses properly. So now this is quite lengthy condition having 11 different and or operators, but I hope you understood how we started from the 3 blank parentheses and then kept on writing the condition inside those as per the logic of the task. Now I can enter the letters in uppercase as well. So that's all from this lesson. Thanks for watching.